What is up, everybody, and welcome into the Locked On Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Mades. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. Matt Moore has the day off. I'm flying solo. Quick apology for not getting this out earlier. I had a family crisis today that kind of took me out of all activities, DNVR and Locked On. That was a bit of a bummer, but I am back here. Last night was such a good game. I wanted to go over and share some of my notebook notes on it. You know, with Denver beating San Antonio for the second time in 3 nights, second game in a row, the home and away. You get the blowout win at home. You go on the road to San Antonio and you get another win. And now that the game, I mean, typically we would have got up this morning, done it in the morning if we didn't have the crisis and would have just gone into kind of what has happened. Everybody's had a chance to digest it. I'd rather do some notebook notes here in first segment. And then later on in the show, tell you, go through each of the 10 guys in the top 10 of the rotation, look at their first 10 games, and then say, what can they work on in the next 10 games that's going to make an impact for them? But first, let's get into some notebook notes. And actually, before that, I want to let you know that today's show is brought to you by Sweat Block. Tell you about that here in a little bit. First note I have on my notes here, it's underrated that the Nuggets can put Murray on the weakest offensive player. This is like one of those little things that you don't really think about when you're talking about, you know, the important things. Of course, they had this when they had Gary Harris, but when you've got Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Bruce Brown, Aaron Gordon, other good defensive players, both Michael Porter and Jamal Murray get the easier of the two assignments, you know, between the two forwards and the two guards. And that makes a big deal, especially when you talk about, you know, late in games, you're going to have to, everybody's going to have to guard, you're going to have to switch. But for most of the game, if you just don't have to like waste a ton of energy guarding the fastest, quickest player, most dynamic player, it saves you a lot. Nikola Jokic is up to 3.5 deflections per game. Last year, it was 2.9. He ranks 12th in the entire NBA right now with 3.5. You know, going up basically a half a deflection per game. Small sample size, yes. But after the game, the second one, Michael Malone specifically noted how good he has been at those specifically. And he even mentioned like the getting deflections with hands, even getting deflections with feet. You know, and yesterday it was actually noticeable because I think he had 3 or 4 where he just like kicks the ball and pick and roll. It sounds silly, but Jokic, his defense is rebounding. His defense is really quick hands, the best hands of any big in the NBA. And so he gets a lot of steals, but he also just gets a lot of deflections and then just like playing angles and what have you. So getting kicks, even though it's not a steal, not a turnover, it breaks up a play, it shortens the shot clock, and it makes a team reset. And those can be really, really valuable for him. He had a lot of those going yesterday. I wouldn't mind seeing more Aaron Gordon and Jokic pick and rolls. And in particular, I wouldn't with Aaron Gordon as the ball handler. And I wouldn't actually mind seeing more just Aaron Gordon initiating offense in general. If you think about it, Denver's been very effective with him in the dunker spot and him off ball, just rebounding and doing different things, setting screens. But when he has the ball in his hands and he's running pick and roll with Jokic, those are your two pick and roll partners. You get Michael Porter, KCP, and Jamal Murray off ball, spacing the floor. That's your 3 best shooters on the team. You know, 3 or your 4 if you add Bones Highland in there. But 3 of your 4 best shooters spacing the court. There's just so much you can do with it. So Denver's exploring. One of the cool things about an NBA season, especially when you have new pieces, is, you know, the whole season is about exploring new possibilities and refining the possibilities you already have. Denver, I think, they've gone to a lot of things, a lot of different things have worked. That's one that I think is going to work like an awful lot. There's certain things that you look at and you could tell Denver goes, okay, put that down, mark that down. That one's a banger. I think having Aaron Gordon as the initiator is going to be one of those things. Both Bruce Brown and KCP, they've really perfected the inverted pick and roll slip. So running pick and roll with Jokic, you know, where they set the screen, but where they both have gotten really good at it, one is in transition. Denver, by the way, has been great in transition this year. This is one of the stories from this last game, is that Denver turned good defensive stops into quick, fast breaks where they just converted at a high level. And again, I think that's because you don't want to switch. You don't want to cross match. Teams get punished when they cross match on Denver. But also when you have spacing, you have a KCP running to a corner, you have a Michael Porter running to a corner, you have all these different weapons. It just becomes hard to guard. But specifically in transition, when Jokic is bringing the ball up, whether it's KCP or Bruce Brown, both of them have gotten very good at screening the ball handler, which is Jokic, but slipping before the defense can figure out what to do. And they both have gotten really good quick passes from Jokic on that. So if you imagine a screen coming up with big-bodied Jokic, the guy on ball is going to get screened, and so the other guy has to step up to kind of like trap or show on the screen. Well, if you slip that, if you release off of that screen right away before you even make contact, two come on the ball, nobody goes on the roller, and you get that quick pass. Jokic, obviously being so tall, he can see over the top. Both of those guys have really become good at that, and they're getting buckets off of it. I think Bruce Brown a little bit ahead, but I think KCP might be seeing Bruce Brown have all the success for it. He's added it to his arsenal, and it's just another weapon. One of my notes I have for Bones Hyland, who's been up and down a little bit as to be expected, I think he can pick his spots a little bit better for when he dances with the ball versus when he straight attacks. And again, this is small sample size stuff. I think he's actually last year was pretty good at this. This year, I feel like the dance slider has gone a little bit high, just the like multiple dribbles, going back 3, 4, 5 attacks of a guy. I just think there's going to be more opportunity for him to kind of pick when to do that, and even just change of pace. I think one of the things with Bones right now is he's playing at such a fast pace at all times that he's getting sped up almost. Not he's getting sped up, but he's allowing the pace of play to go fast. Slow guys down, then hit him with a quick burst, then slow down, kind of mix it in. I think that's one of the things I'm noticing from him is that he's at kind of too intense of a pace, and it's making him easier to guard. Michael Porter still passes up 1 or 2 open shots per game. That's pretty obvious. I would rather him passing up too many shots than taking too many. But, I think it's probably now at the moment. I'm watching Doug McDermott in this last game. He just goes up. As soon as he gets a tiny bit of daylight, he knows I'm only on the court to shoot threes. Like I'm here to get things up quick. Michael Porter still has a couple of opportunities. People keep saying they need to get him more shots. How 10 shots for a guy shooting 50%. I agree. The team does need to do some stuff, but I still think there's opportunity for him to be more aggressive. And I'm listening to him in the locker room yesterday. Scott Hastings is interviewing him, and he's saying, hey, we're getting threes up, and we're going to, Michael Malone, coach, keeps saying we want to get more and more threes up, and we're cool with that. And he kind of laughs. And I'm sitting here thinking, you probably need even quicker. It can be a quicker trigger on some of those early ones. And then that'll help to sell his pump fake. Like right now, his pump fake hasn't been as effective as it should be for a guy shooting 50%. But some of that is just becomes so quick of a trigger with it that guys are running into you, drawing fouls, all doing those types of things. I put this on Twitter. Michael Porter is 11 of 15 on transition threes this year. I think that's 70-something%. That's an insane 73.3, I think, percent. That's an insane mark. It also tells me something like he's really good on spot up threes, and he's good in transition. I think he's actually 6 of 6 or something, or 8 of 8 on transition threes where he's the ball handler. I call those mics, where he's dribbling the ball up the court, nobody stops him, or somebody stops too shallow and he just pulls for 3. So it's not that he's just good as a catch and shoot guy. He's also good off the dribble, but specifically in transition. And one of the things that suggests to me, again, small sample size, but is that Michael Porter still doesn't quite read where his shots are. And catch and shoot, it's obvious when you're the guy. You kick out, you're open. Okay, I shoot it. Transition, nobody steps up. It's obvious. Here I go. Off of cuts, he actually has been like 33% off of cuts. I can't remember what the numbers are, but they weren't that great. And I think, and then like off the dribble, ball handler or whatever, those are low as well. And again, that's telling me that I think when he has the mind frame of, okay, I know this is my shot, he's nails. 11 of 15 is insane. Catch and shoot, he's like 60%. So both of those numbers are insane. But just kind of recognizing scoring opportunities is going to be a process with him. It's one of the things I want to see. I love when Bones Hyland gets the screen above the three-point line. This is one of the things DeAndre Jordan, he sets good screens. But one of the things I've noticed lately with them is that they are extending that pick and roll, especially at the top of the key in front of the basket. The side pick and rolls or whatever, he's good at getting downhill, but you're not pulling up as much from the sides. But when you're in the front of the basket, in center court, Bones Hyland is so good at the deep three from that spot in particular. And lately, DeAndre Jordan has been setting the screen full body, both feet outside the three-point line. Defenses are going under that one, daring Bones to shoot. He shoots it. He makes it. I just like that. This is what makes teams like Portland so dangerous, is Damian Lillard has become so good at those deep threes that you set the screen so high, and now defenders on ball are forced to go over the screen 30 feet from the basket, and then that just makes the spacing so much bigger. If Bones Hyland can kind of sort of replicate that, and DeAndre Jordan can replicate that, I think it's going to work really nicely. Christian Brown hasn't been getting a ton of minutes. I think he's played single digits 2 of the last 3 games against at Oklahoma City and then against the Spurs. I hope that number goes up, especially as Denver goes on the road. I mean, I do think there's opportunity there. And he's just such a great on-ball defender. I mean, I keep going around thinking, is it KCP? Is it Bruce Brown? Christian Brown? Who's the best perimeter defender? They all do things a little bit different. Bruce is a little bit more physical, versatile. He plays an aggressive style. KCP is probably the most well-rounded, lowest mistake, super smart, shadows guys. Guys can't get around him. Christian Brown might be the most like fundamentally sound, and he's so long and so big, but he just stays in front of guys. He stays down. He doesn't bite on fakes. He's a really good defender. And it's a long season. This is by no means a knock on the last 3 games. Denver's 3-0 in their last 3 games. Not a whole lot of notes or complaints, but I do hope that Christian Brown gets more and more minutes, because I really believe that by the end of this season, he's going to be a guy that is going to deserve 12, 13, he's going to deserve regular rotation minutes, and not just deserve them, because deserves one thing, but I think he's going to be a guy that like makes Denver better if he can play 15 to 20 minutes a night. And to do that, you got to play him a little bit consistently and find spots for him. I got some more notes, but first I want to tell you about Sweat Block. This is to all the sweaty guys out there. You're an athlete, you're an active person, but you're also in the office. You need something that is going to provide that sweat block, so you're not sweating through your dress shirts at work, or you're not going to the gym just drenched in sweat because all day you've been sweating. What are you looking for? Sweat Block. They've even got the Sweat Block wipes. I actually have these because they send them to you in a little package. Sweat Block wipes. They work up to 7 days per use. I've never tested that. I shower every day. I'm an obsessive shower person, but it's nice to know if you miss a day or 2, or 7, apparently, these things still work for you. You apply them on Sunday, you stay dry all week. If you or someone you know is experiencing embarrassing sweat or odor, try Sweat Block. Save 20% when you use promo code LOCKEDON at sweatblock.com. They're also available on Amazon. But again, 20% when you use promo code LOCKEDON at sweatblock.com. I'll be right back. All right, back here, segment 2, going through notebooks. Whenever I'm self-producing here, guys, it's always hard to follow the chat. So I appreciate all the people that are watching live on YouTube following this notebook one, but unfortunately not able to follow these live if you have the questions or what have you. So just going to keep moving on this. A couple more notes here. Jamal Murray's also a really good defender. I was just talking about Christian Brown. It's funny, man. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Jamal Murray's been a very good player, and at moments, a great player. In his absence, there's certain things that happened. Jokic became a 2-time MVP. Jokic looked great. There were high moments. There was lots of good things there. You forget how great Jamal Murray is until he comes back and does some of the things. And he is already, I've gone all in on this 2-man game. I did a video that's up on the DNVR YouTube channel that everybody should go check out, just showing in the first Spurs game how good the Murray-Jokic 2-man game was. And I actually saw it first back in, all year you've seen little bits of it. Back when they played the Lakers, you saw it a lot. When they played the Thunder, you saw it a lot. You played the Spurs, you saw it so much down the stretch and throughout the game that I thought I have to make a video of this. But then last night, in a game that was actually close, because like the Thunder, that game had some close moments, and then the Spurs game was a blowout. But last night, when Denver's playing Spurs for the second time, they actually needed the Murray-Jokic 2-man game to win it. And it was flawless. The only flaw in down the stretch, this is what I remember of Murray-Jokic the last time they were on the court together, is that if a game was in striking distance in the fourth quarter, in the final 5 minutes, in clutch time, you go to that 2-man game and nobody has an answer for it. You get A+ shots every single time down court. You add in KCP and Michael Porter or Bruce Brown or Aaron Gordon, all these guys that know how to play off it and can defend. If you just get into a half court with Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, you are going to have a dynamite offense down the stretch. And in that game in particular, I'm watching it. My jaw's on the floor with how effective both guys are, but especially Jamal Murray as a 2-man game player. After the game, he talked about it's special to have chemistry like that I have. It really is the only player in the NBA who I think it's comparable to, or who can be comparable to Murray and Jokic, is Steph Curry and Draymond Green. And to be honest with you, Draymond Green is great at that short roll, but this is one of those scenarios where it's like mostly Steph Curry's gravity and how great he is off the dribble. I'm not trying to take anything away. Everybody knows I like Draymond. I have a lot of appreciation for him as a basketball player. But his role is always the same, rolling, right? He sets good screens, he reads the angles, this or that, but he's always rolling when two guys had to jump out at Steph. So I'm not trying to take away from him. Those two guys have been doing it so long that they can play and move the ball together just so much, and it's a cool thing to watch. Murray and Jokic is much more even. I mean, Jokic is still the two-time MVP, so like Steph, he's the majority of what makes it work. But Murray is so much more so much more like stirring the pot and making the things happen and making big shots. And when you watch those two guys like I did, we're only 10 games into the Jamal Murray return. 9 if you count the fact that he missed one game. We're only 10 games into it. And watching him and Jokic just dance on the court together in perfect sync down the stretch of this one, not once, not twice, but like 12 times in a row. Just every single time they do something and get something perfect out of it. It's the type of thing that you watch and you go, yeah, Denver is a title contender, because title contenders have to have multiple ways of beating you, but they have to have one thing that breaks you. You know, you have lots of different ways. You try to take this way or you overload on this. Where do you go? Denver's got Porter. They've got KCP. They've got Aaron Gordon, Bruce Brown. They got things they can do. They can play, get the ball popping, which is what you're going to do to win a lot of games in the regular season, what you're going to do to win just the moments of time when you're not, you don't want to go two-man game the entire game. That's like Houston Rockets just go spread pick and roll with James Harden, ISO with James Harden the whole time, and everybody hates each other and there's no flow. This is more like you can play a lot of different styles, but you know that when you need a bucket, you can go to this one thing that is just so dynamic. And again, 10 games into the season, and already those two guys just look like they're in perfect sync. It's out of this world. The thing, though, about Murray's return so far that has really, I don't want to say surprised me, but that I'm reminded of in a way that I was like, oh, that's right, this is a great thing, is how impactful Jamal Murray can be on the defensive end. And he's not in great enough shape to be an impact defender all of the time. But when you get down into the clutch, he's just huge. He's up 6'5", 200, and I don't know what he is, 220, 215, 210, something like that. But he's a big-bodied guy. He's got a good wingspan. He competes. He's just such a competitor, and he has good instincts. He knows, how to read the court or whatever. So we talk about the perimeter defense of KCP, Bruce Brown, Christian Brown. That's 3 very good ones. Jamal Murray is an above-average defender, and I think by the playoffs is going to be a very good defender. And he's just not a guy that, if teams want to ISO Jamal Murray every time down court, Denver's going to win by 20 points. He's a very, very good player, a good team defender, and that's one of the things that stood out to me. And then the last thing I have is Denver has some indicators here that you think, okay, are they just running hot? Well publicized that they're the number 1 shooting team in the NBA right now, 3-point shooting team. They've got guys, Bones Highland, that's running a little hot right now. KCP's having a career year. Michael Porter shooting 50%. Although Michael Porter is shooting 50% on the season and also has shot 50% in 7 of the 9 games he's played, which is crazy. That's a crazy stat. He's so consistently shooting 50% that I don't – Bones and KCP I think are a little hot right now. Michael Porter, I think it's just who he is. But you could say, okay, Denver's probably going to regress a little bit from the greatest 3-point shooting team in NBA history. They're probably going to regress a little bit, but they are also allowing the most points off of turnovers per, or 5th most points off of turnovers per 100 possessions. They're not getting rebounds. And by the way, I think our offensive rebounds, and one of the reasons is I think Denver will start to, as the Murray-Jokic 2-man game starts to go. I've wondered why, in all of the Jokic era, they've been a top offensive rebounding team. And then all of a sudden last year they weren't. What changed? And we're trying to come up with all the different things. I honestly think the reason Jokic gets so many offensive rebounds is because of the 2-man game. When you can spread a team out, Murray either gets to the cup and makes it, or he gets to the cup, draws the defender so hard, he just flips it up off the backboard. Jokic offensive rebound, put back easy. So I think that's a number that so far Denver's been average. They've been like last year. The offensive rebounding hasn't been there. But as I'm watching the games, I'm seeing the moments where I'm like, yep, that's going to turn into some offensive rebounds really quick. So Denver's shooting might regress a little bit, but I think their offensive rebounding is going to go up. And also just the other stuff that they do, their shots at the rim is going to go up. Jokic's scoring is going to go up. His post, he's not posting up very much right now. I think a full post up per game less than what he was doing last year. Those things are going to go up. So there's a lot of positive indicators to me that some of this stuff is going to improve quite a bit. But the 2-man game between them, I'm telling you guys, it's special. Jokic is a 2-time MVP. I think it's not crazy to think of him as a duo, less about an individual and more of as a duo, because that's how much, you think of the Stocktons and Malones, the guys that were 1-2, you think of as pairings. I kind of think of Jokic as individually great, but him and Murray just somehow get the most out of each other, and it's really cool to watch. All right, let's start off. I'm going to do a couple of these before we go to third segment. We'll do most of them in the third segment, but we're 10 games in. Let's break this season into 10-game blocks, and let's look ahead to the next 10 games and set goals for each individual player. With Jamal Murray, I think this one is very interesting or very easy. It's conditioning. Jamal Murray looks back timing-wise. He looks back comfort and confidence-wise. He doesn't look back quickness-wise, and he doesn't look back like there's still times in the game, almost every game, where he's got his hands on his knees. In fact, there are plays right now as I'm watching the film where Murray kind of takes on, it's almost like he's taking a play off and everybody understands. They'll put him in the corner, they'll put him on the wing, and he'll kind of have his hands on his knees like he's exhausted. And it's like, okay, Murray needs a 30-second rest on the court. Let's run something else. And Denver's good enough that they can get away with it. But for me, that's the next 10 games. Okay, he's gotten his confidence and his timing back. Next 10 games, get your conditioning back. And then hopefully after this 10-game window, you're starting to get into the December month. Hopefully then he's starting to get back to peak performance. I mean, I've started thinking, when is Murray going to be fully back to where he was before? I kept thinking, maybe March, maybe January if we're lucky, or this or that. I think it might be in 10 games. It's really, to me, everything's back except for the conditioning. So can he get that back over the next 10 games? We'll find out. Michael Malone commented on this, by the way, after the game. He said, Murray's feeling good, by the way, and he asked Malone, what do you see? What do you think of how I'm playing? And he said, I still see areas where you're not yourself yet. I love that about Malone. And he says he's got to work his way back into game shape. And he mentioned specifically rebounding in the defensive end. Well, he grabbed 5. He said he should be 5 rebounds a game. That game, he grabs 5 rebounds. So I think it's one of those things where with Jamal, we know he likes to be challenged. So I like the fact that Michael Malone didn't just say like, oh, you're doing good, don't worry about it. He gave him specific things like, you should be grabbing 5 rebounds a game. We'll see what happens against Indiana. Does he go out and grab 5-6 rebounds? We'll find out. But I think the conditioning thing is going to be the thing that completely unlocks Jamal. And I couldn't be more optimistic about where Jamal is right now. I think that you talked about, Michael Porter, and could he be the second leading scorer, which he is right now? Murray, to me, looks like this curve has been steep for his ascent in his return, and I'm very excited for what happens to him over the next 10 games. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer, esports. You got it all on BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. Always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, final segment here. KCP, trying to give every guy on the team one thing that I'd say like, oh, this would be good to see over the next 10 games. KCP is the only player I don't have one for. He has been really good. And I'm curious, maybe in the chat, I'll be able to check this afterwards, but I don't have a thing where I can look at and say, hey, this is the thing I think. Then he's shooting lights out. He's defending really well. He's not stepping outside the lines. He's not turning the ball over. He's getting more steal. I mean, he has career high. KCP's having career high numbers almost everywhere other than points per game, but because it's a lower role. But he is just playing so ridiculously good right now that I don't know what it is that he could be doing. The one thing I would say is maybe there's a leadership opportunity for him. Like we all talk about Michael Porter. He's so good that there's ways to unlock him. KCP is very good at, finding shots. Maybe it's something there, but KCP is the one guy I had a hard time just thinking about what is it that he needs to be doing a little bit better. I'm open to suggestion. Michael Porter, finding shots within the flow of the offense. This was coming into the season. He's been great at not forcing things, but I do think there's opportunities for him to take 3 or 4 shots more per game, just not having more plays run for you, not anything else, but just like looking for opportunities. And I think this is especially true at the rim. He's shooting just 17% of his field goal attempts this season at the rim. The last time he was healthy, that was 22.5%. So he's down about 6%, 5%. He's down about 5%. It's not a lot in a 9-game sample size. That's pretty much nothing. One game of getting to the rim a lot will make a difference. But I do think there's a little bit of a noticeable difference in that. And by the way, he has 3 dunks this season. Last year, when he was clearly hurt for he played 9 games last year. He's played 9 games this year. Last year, when he was clearly hurt, he had 2 dunks. So he's basically dunking it at the same rate, which, by the way, through 9 games, his first year was like 12 dunks. So he's clearly closer on dunks to what he was last year than what he was his first 2 seasons in the NBA. Some of that is probably just his athletic pop. He doesn't quite have the same pop that he had before. I don't know if that's ever coming back. I don't know if that's like Murray, where it's, hey, get your shape, get a little bit better in condition. But I do think that now some of this, I hope the mind frame isn't I'm doing everything coach asks. Hopefully, eventually, then he'll give me the green light to do more. I think it's more I'm doing everything coach asks. Let me find the spots in the offense. Let me develop some chemistry with Jokic so we have little two-man actions to get him more shots. I just think that's going to be big for him. Aaron Gordon, better closeouts. And by extension, better on-ball defense. But he has really stood out to me in these first few games as a guy that like gives good effort, but makes dumb breakdowns late in possessions, in particular on the closeout part. By the way, all these guys have been great. Aaron Gordon's been very good. He's exceeded my expectations. So this is not a critique of him in aggregate. It's just one thing he can, I think, get better at. And that is just keeping the ball in front. I mean, with Jokic, so much of defense is don't get beat to where Jokic has to step up. Like, if Jokic needs to provide help as you're driving, no problem. He'll get a hand on a ball. He'll cut off angles. He'll make things hard. But if you get beat and they're going downhill, that's where Denver's defense really falls apart. And he's done that as much as just about anybody this year, or at least way more than you would expect from a guy. Like, when we talk about the best defenders on the team this year, Aaron Gordon might be coming in at fourth. You know, he's probably behind Bruce Brown, Christian Brown, and KCP. He needs to be, I think, more in the conversation right now with those guys of, all the collection of defenders. And I think he can do it. And this next 10 games is going to test him. You got Jason Tatum. You got DeMar DeRozan. You got Barrett in New York. You've got Luka Doncic 2 times. You got Cade Cunningham. You got Paul George. That's a lot of matchups that will be, hey, this is your night, Aaron Gordon. Go guard those guys. So he has an opportunity to really put his fingerprints on this upcoming 10-game slate. With Jokic, it's better defense and rim protection. I mean, I think this is actually a thing that we're lumping all 10 games together. I think the last 2 or 3 games, Jokic has actually been noticeably improved in that department. But nonetheless, I know a lot of people are going to want him to be more aggressive or this or that. I'm not so sure I'm concerned about that like most people are, but I do want to see the defense. I would love to see Denver continue to climb the defensive standings. By the way, I think Denver's 5th right now in offensive efficiency and climbing rapidly. Like, I think Denver's offense is fine. And then if there's a second one for him, just find a way to reward Michael Porter. Michael Porter's been great so far this year. Reward the guy. Try to work with him just a little bit more. Bones Highland, better consistency, lower turnovers. His turnover numbers have been a little bit high this year compared to last year. But this is the challenge for any second-year player. This is where you go from good to great, is can you do it every single night? I know that's Michael Malone's challenge to him. And not even a matter of every night. I thought in this last game, Bones was very good in the first stint and not as good in the second stint. And that's a thing that I think I've said a few times this year. Like, Bones had a good half, but not 2 good stints. That's the thing that I think for him, I would just be so focused on. Really try to get it so that you're having game after game after game of high-level play, low mistake play, and can you get there? Over the next 10 games, I'd love to see a little bit more of a steady Bones and keep those highs. Like, you can go up, but just don't ever go down below. Find that baseline of good and never dip below that. And every now and then you'll have the good shooting nights, but you're never really dipping too low. Bruce Brown, the challenge for him, he's been great too, and he's been shooting the ball really well. I think he's another guy that's been hot, from the three-point line that maybe will regress over the next 10. We'll find out. But I think finding a way to impact the second unit more would be a good goal for him. And that's not necessarily a goal for him. It's a goal for the entire second unit. One of the things that we're seeing, Bones Highland is best when he's attacking. Like, it's funny. He was asked one time, he was asked by Adonis Arms at training camp. They're doing a scrum, and Adonis Arms walks up and pretends to be media. And he says, Bones, what are you thinking when you have the ball in your hands? What's your thought? What are you thinking about? And Bones laughed, and he goes, kill. I'm just thinking kill. It's a good answer because it's also an honest answer. That's how Bones Highland plays. Bones is always in attack mode. And I think that's fine. That's who he is. Michael Malone's big on let guys be themselves, let them be who they are. He compared him to Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson was always thinking kill, 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 kill. I want Bones to be wired that way. With Bruce Brown, when he's with that first unit, he has to play a certain way, and he's great at it. He excels. It's his natural state is playing this sort of fifth option, running around. I think when he does stagger, though, with the second unit, he has an important role, and that role might be a little bit more of a secondary ball handler and sometimes first ball handler, but just kind of knowing, like, when does Bones need an outlet? When does Bones need me to go get the ball? he's so quick. Bruce Brown is. Bones is so quick that they can become a tandem. If it like right now, I don't feel like that's a chemistry. Those two guys are, but I do think there's a chemistry to be found between the two of them. So move a little bit more in that direction so that those staggered lineups that are so dependent on whether or not Bones is being dynamic one-on-one, find a way to kind of impact that second unit as a pseudo point guard in certain moments. And I think that would be a good goal. Christian Brown just earned more minutes. I don't know how you do that. He's been good. But I don't really have a ton of notes for him other than just be on the court more, because I think Denver, especially as you start to get deeper and deeper into the season, you want to be able to, it sounds silly, but just buy an extra minute or two here or there for different guys, and it'll make a big impact on the overall arch of the season. Jeff Green, lead the second unit, be a little bit more of a veteran voice. That second unit looks like I don't want to say it. Bones is in a tight spot in that he's the youngest player on a very veteran second unit. Jeff Green, I think, can help out with that. Be a little bit more of a like, hey, talk to Bones, get the group going, be vocal on the court, slow things down when they need to be slowed down, orchestrate a little bit more. I know it's an unnatural thing for a power forward to do, but it might be there for him. And then I don't have any notes for DeAndre Jordan. I lied. I thought I had only KCP, but I don't really have anything from DeAndre Jordan. So Casey, I see somebody says KCP gets beat on backdoor cuts sometimes. I think when you're a good defender, like that's inevitable. I don't think it's like too bad. I think that he's fine. Like you're right that getting beat on backdoors is bad, and he has been beat a few times on it. But to me, he's so good at getting into his man out on the perimeter off ball that inevitably that's the one thing is you're going to give up some backdoors from time to time. But nonetheless, it's a good note. You never want to get that. You never want to give that up. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I got some new videos up on the DMVR YouTube channel if you want to check that out. Matt Moore will be back tomorrow as we get back together and continue covering this week. Nuggets in Indiana. We'll be taking on by the way, Pacers are good. They're not they're like I would say they're probably a little bit better than the Thunder, like a lot better than San Antonio, a little bit better than the Thunder in that they have some guys. They don't have a Shea, but they have a few other guys that can really beat you. Miles Turner just had a fantastic game last night. So they're going to be this will be a good challenge where I think Denver, they're favored by 5 or 6, at the sports books. So Denver should win. They're favored to win, but by no means will it be a cakewalk. So it should be a very fun, very entertaining game, and hopefully keeps this momentum going. 3 in a row, 4 in a row. That's a good streak going.